When you really sit down and look at your life, the first thing you need to ask yourself is brutally simple. Who's responsible for this? Not your parents, not your teachers, not the system, not the people who doubted you, betrayed you, or ignored you. It's you. Every single day you wake up with choices, and those choices accumulate into the structure of your life. Most people run from this realization because it's terrifying. If you accept that your life is your responsibility, then there's no one left to blame. No scapegoat, no excuses, just you and the truth. But here's the paradox. That terrifying truth is also the most liberating discovery you will ever make. Because the second you take responsibility, you take back your power. You stop being a puppet pulled by the strings of circumstance, and you start becoming the author of your own story. Responsibility is not a burden, it is the doorway to freedom. Without it, you will always live as a shadow of what you could have been, waiting for someone else to fix your problems, someone else to build your future, someone else to hand you happiness. And I'll tell you this, no one is coming, not a single person. When you fully grasp that, something inside you shifts. Instead of looking outward, you start looking inward. You stop asking, why me? And you start asking, what can I do about it? You begin to realize that the smallest actions you take today, what you eat, how much you sleep, whether you put in the work or scroll endlessly on your phone, are all bricks in the foundation of your future. Radical self-responsibility doesn't mean you control everything that happens to you. Life is chaotic, unpredictable, and often cruel. But it does mean you control your response. And your response, over time, determines who you become. Think of it this way. If you keep blaming the world, you hand over your power to the world. You surrender the steering wheel of your life to the chaos outside you. But if you accept responsibility, even for the parts of life that weren't your fault, you regain control of the direction. Yes, the storm may be raging, but now your hands are firmly on the rudder. That is the essence of strength, not waiting for perfect conditions, but learning to navigate the imperfect ones with courage and discipline. You will notice that people around you often resist this mindset, because when you take responsibility, you expose their excuses. When you say, I'm not where I want to be, but I'm going to change that, you remind them that they could be doing the same. And that frightens them. It's easier to stay comfortable in the victim's role, easier to believe that success belongs only to the lucky or the chosen. But you will shock them when you choose otherwise. You will shock them when you take ownership of every part of your life and refuse to be defined by circumstance. There's a fire that ignites inside you when you stop waiting and start building. It's the kind of fire that makes you work while others sleep, learn while others gossip, and grow while others stagnate. And eventually, the results will speak louder than any excuse ever could. People won't understand how you did it, but deep down they'll know the truth. You did it because you refused to wait for rescue. So decide today that your life is in your hands. Decide that you will no longer outsource your future to anyone else. Decide that no matter how heavy the burden feels, you will carry it, because carrying it is what makes you stronger. Take radical responsibility for yourself, because in the end, that is the only path to becoming someone unstoppable. And when you do, you won't need to tell anyone you've changed. They'll see it, and they'll be shocked. If you look around at the world today, you'll see countless people drowning in distraction. Their lives are filled with noise, notifications, endless scrolling, gossip, shallow conversations, the pursuit of quick pleasures that offer no lasting fulfillment. And the tragedy is, they confuse this constant stimulation with living, but it isn't living. It's a slow erosion of potential. Distraction steals the very energy you need to build the life you dream of. It steals your focus, your time, your clarity, and eventually, your sense of purpose. And the sad truth is, most people will never escape it. They will waste years, even decades, being busy but not effective, entertained but not fulfilled, moving but going nowhere. The antidote to this is discipline. Discipline is not glamorous. It does not give you immediate applause. No one celebrates you for turning off your phone, for waking up early, for working late when no one is watching. No one claps when you choose to read a book instead of binging a show, or when you go to the gym instead of lying in bed. Discipline is invisible, quiet, and often uncomfortable, but it is the foundation of greatness, because while distraction drains you, discipline builds you. Every disciplined choice compounds into strength, focus, and progress. Think about it. Distraction is easy. Anyone can do it, but discipline requires sacrifice, and that is why it shocks people. When they see you consistently choosing growth over comfort, they realize you are playing a different game. While they scatter their attention across 1,000 meaningless things, you channel yours into building something that matters. And that focused energy is what separates the average from the extraordinary. You see, the world isn't short on talent. The world is short on people who can focus, people who can say no, people who can endure boredom without giving in to the easy escape. The difference between someone who stays stuck and someone who rises is rarely intelligence. It's discipline. It's the ability to keep going when no one's watching, when no one's praising, when no one cares. Discipline is the invisible hand that shapes your future when the rest of the world is distracted. But here's the challenge. You can't expect discipline to feel good. At least not at first. Discipline feels like resistance. It feels like friction. It feels like choosing the harder path when the easier one is right there. And yet, it is exactly that resistance that strengthens you. Like muscles torn and rebuilt in the gym, your character is forged every time you resist distraction and choose discipline instead. Over time, what once felt like a burden becomes natural. It becomes who you are. Most people look for motivation, waiting to feel inspired before they act. That's a trap. Motivation comes and goes like the weather. Discipline is what carries you through the storms. Discipline is what gets you to your desk when you don't feel like working, to the gym when you don't feel like lifting, to bed early when you want to stay up late. Discipline is what ensures you keep moving forward even when progress feels invisible. And the irony is, when you act with discipline long enough, motivation eventually follows. But you cannot wait for it. You must lead it. This is why people will be shocked by you. Because the world is full of individuals enslaved by distraction, constantly chasing the next hit of comfort or entertainment. But you will choose differently. You will choose to focus, to cut out the noise, to live deliberately while others drift aimlessly. And when they see the results of your discipline, the health, the knowledge, the success, the transformation, they won't be able to deny it. They'll wonder how you did it. They'll search for the secret, and the secret will be simple. You built when they wasted. You focused when they scattered. You chose discipline over distraction. So decide today that you will no longer trade your future for temporary pleasures. Decide that you will harness your focus, guard your time, and train your mind to resist the noise. Because the truth is, in a world full of distraction, the rarest and most shocking thing of all is a human being who is disciplined. And when you become that person, nothing and no one can stop you. Life is not fair, you already know that. At some point, you've been hurt, disappointed, betrayed, or crushed under the weight of something you didn't ask for. Maybe it was a failure that shattered your confidence. Maybe it was rejection that made you question your worth. Maybe it was loss so deep that it left a scar you thought you could never heal from. Pain is unavoidable. No matter who you are, no matter where you come from, it will find you. And the brutal truth is this: you don't get to choose whether or not you experience pain, but you do get to choose what you do with it. That choice is everything. For many people, pain becomes the end of their story. They let it define them, break them, reduce them to shadows of what they could have been. They drown in bitterness. They cling to resentment. they bury themselves in excuses. They convince themselves that because life was cruel, they are entitled to remain weak. And maybe the world even nods along, sympathizes, tells them it's understandable. But understandable doesn't mean fulfilling. You can live in pain your entire life and never move forward, if you choose to. But there is another path. You can take that same pain, that same crushing weight, and you can forge it into fuel. You can decide that what happened to you will not be wasted. You can decide that the suffering you endured will not destroy you. It will strengthen you. Every scar can either be a reminder of what you lost or a symbol of what you survived. The difference is how you frame it, how you use it. And once you choose to use it, the power it gives you is unlike anything else. Think about it. Comfort rarely creates greatness. Easy times don't forge strong people. It is the struggle, the challenge, the moments when you thought you couldn't go on but did anyway. That's where resilience is born. That's where character is forged. Your pain can either be the chain that keeps you bound or the fire that drives you forward. And no one else gets to decide that for you. It's in your hands. When you turn pain into fuel, something extraordinary happens. You stop running from it, you face it, you acknowledge it, and you ask, what can this teach me? How can this build me? That question changes everything. Because instead of being a victim of your past, you become a student of it. Instead of resenting the suffering, you extract meaning from it. And meaning is what transforms pain into power. People will not understand how you keep moving forward when you should have been broken. They will look at you and wonder how you managed to rise after everything that tried to bury you. And that's what shocks them. Not that you experienced pain, because everyone does, but that you used it differently. That you didn't let it weaken you, but instead let it harden your resolve, sharpen your focus, and ignite your determination. Pain, when harnessed, becomes the most potent fuel you will ever find. And I'll tell you something else. The people who shock the world are not those who had everything handed to them. They are the ones who faced hell and refused to stay there. They are the ones who took the unfairness, the loss, the heartbreak, and decided to make it count. They turned it into strength so undeniable that it became impossible to ignore. So whatever pain you carry, don't waste it. Don't bury it. Don't let it rot inside you. Burn it. Use it. Let it drive you when motivation fails. Let it push you when fear creeps in. Let it remind you that you have already survived worse. Because when you transform pain into fuel, there is nothing left to fear. You become unstoppable, not because life spared you from suffering, but because you refuse to let suffering define you. And that is the kind of transformation that leaves the world speechless. One of the greatest mistakes people make is broadcasting every move before it's even made. They talk about their dreams endlessly, announcing grand plans and bold intentions, as though speaking them out loud is enough to bring them to life. But here's the problem. When you share everything before you've built anything, you not only waste your energy, you invite distraction, doubt, and interference. The world doesn't reward empty talk. It rewards results, and results don't come from noise. They come from discipline, consistency, and quiet work when no one is watching. Silence is underrated. It is the space where growth actually happens. When you work in silence, you are free from the pressure of performing for others. You aren't seeking their validation, and you aren't chained to their expectations. Instead, your focus is on the work itself, on building something solid, something undeniable, something that cannot be dismissed. And that kind of focus is rare because most people can't resist the temptation of attention. They want to be seen trying, even if they never finish. But you will be different. You will choose to be seen succeeding, not merely talking. Building in silence doesn't mean you hide forever. It doesn't mean you never share what you're doing. It means you wait until there is something worth sharing. Something finished, something real. Think about a seed planted in the soil. For weeks, sometimes months, it grows in darkness. No one sees it, no one applauds it, no one even knows it exists. but beneath the surface it is developing roots so strong that when it finally breaks through the ground, it cannot be ignored. That's what your life must be like. The silence is where your roots grow. The success is when the world finally sees what you've been building all along. Of course, building in silence requires patience. It requires the ability to delay gratification, to resist the urge to show off halfway finished progress just to earn a moment of praise. That moment of praise, tempting as it is, can kill your momentum. Because once you've received applause for the idea, the drive to complete it often fades. But when you stay quiet, when you resist the applause and keep pushing, you protect your hunger. You keep the fire alive. And when the time finally comes to reveal what you've built, it is undeniable. The people around you will be shocked because they didn't see it coming. They thought you were ordinary, that you were distracted like everyone else, that you were wasting your time. They didn't notice the long nights, the early mornings, the sacrifices you made in silence. But when you step forward with results, with achievements, with transformation so real it cannot be denied, they will have no choice but to take notice. Your success will be louder than any speech you could have given along the way. The truth is, noise is cheap. Anybody can make noise, but silence is powerful. Silence builds character. Silence builds strength. Silence makes the final outcome all the more shocking, because no one was prepared for it. You will understand that your silence was never weakness. It was strategy. It was the space where your foundation was laid. So stop wasting your breath on promises. Stop seeking validation for half-finished dreams. Let your silence protect you. Let your work refine you, and when the time is right, let your success be the only sound they hear. Because in a world full of people shouting about what they're going to do, the most powerful voice of all belongs to the one who simply does it. And when you become that person, your silence will thunder. Most people live by the standards handed to them by the world around them. They accept the average, the ordinary, the expectations that everyone else seems content with. Work just enough to get by, exercise just enough to stay alive, learn just enough to keep a conversation going. That's what passes as normal, and because it's normal, most people never question it. They never stop to ask themselves if these standards are actually worthy of who they could become. But here's the truth. The life you end up living will always reflect the standards you set for yourself. If your standards are low, your life will be small. If your standards are high, your life will expand to meet them. Redefining your standards is not about arrogance or perfectionism. It's about deciding that good enough is no longer good enough. It's about realizing that every time you settle, you shrink. Every time you tell yourself it doesn't matter, you reinforce the belief that your potential doesn't matter either. And slowly, without even realizing it, you become a person who accepts mediocrity in exchange for comfort. That is the quiet tragedy of most lives, not that they failed spectacularly, but that they never demanded more of themselves. When you raise your standards, everything changes. Suddenly, you're no longer willing to tolerate the laziness, the excuses, the bad habits that once ruled your days. You start to demand more of yourself in how you think, how you act, how you carry yourself. You stop waiting for circumstances to improve and instead improve yourself until you can handle greater circumstances. That shift may feel uncomfortable, even painful, because growth always stretches you. But it is exactly in that discomfort where you discover strength you didn't know you had. Of course, when you raise your standards, people around you may not understand. They'll say you're being too strict, too serious, too demanding. But what they're really saying is that you're exposing the limits of their own standards. Your commitment will make their comfort look small. And instead of rising with you, many will try to pull you back down. That's why raising your standards requires courage. It means choosing a different path, one where the approval of the crowd matters less than the approval of your own conscience. And here's the thing, your standards don't just define your present, they shape your future. If you demand more from yourself in your health, you'll create a body that carries you with strength. If you demand more in your learning, you'll create a mind capable of solving problems others can't. If you demand more in your discipline, you'll create a life that looks impossible to those still living by shallow expectations. High standards create high results. Low standards create excuses. It's that simple. Think about it this way. A tree can only grow as tall as its roots allow. Your standards are those roots. If they're shallow, you'll collapse at the first storm. If they're deep, you'll rise higher than anyone thought possible. Redefining your standards is about digging those roots deeper every single day. It's about asking yourself, what kind of person am I becoming? What will I refuse to accept any longer? What will I demand of myself that forces me to grow? Those questions will set you apart because most people never ask them. So decide now to raise the bar for your own life. Decide that you will no longer accept mediocrity where excellence is possible. Decide that you will not settle for being just another face in the crowd when you are capable of standing tall. Because the moment you redefine your standards, you redefine your destiny. And when you walk into the world with standards so high that they demand your very best, you won't just surprise people. You'll shock them with what you've become. There is no greater shock you can deliver to the world than transforming yourself so completely that people no longer recognize the person you once were. Think about that for a moment. Most people remain tethered to their past identities. They cling to old stories about who they are, what they can do, and where they belong. And because they never question those stories, they stay the same year after year, predictable and unchanged. But you don't have to live that way. You can choose to rewrite your story. You can choose to evolve so drastically that when people from your past see you, they hardly believe you're the same person. That's what it means to shock them by becoming unrecognizable. This isn't about pretending to be someone else. It's not about masks or faking growth. It's about genuine transformation, about becoming the truest and strongest version of yourself. So far removed from the broken, limited version you once were that people can't help but take notice. The habits that once defined you, gone. The fears that once controlled you, conquered. The insecurities that once held you back, replaced with unshakable confidence. And here's the remarkable thing. When you change like this, you don't just shock others, you shock yourself. You discover that you were capable of far more than you ever imagined. But to become unrecognizable, you have to be willing to let go of who you are today. That's the hard part. It means killing off the weaker version of yourself, the one that clings to comfort, the one that fears judgment, the one that makes excuses. That part of you has to die if you want to rise. Transformation demands sacrifice. You can't carry your old limitations into your new life. You can't keep the same habits, the same mindset, the same environment, and expect to become someone entirely different. You have to let the old version of yourself crumble so the stronger version can emerge. People around you will resist this. They will remind you of your past, of your mistakes, of the times you failed. They will try to pull you back into the box they've always known you in, because your transformation threatens their comfort. And this is where you must be ruthless. You must refuse to be defined by their memory of you. You are not obligated to stay the same for the sake of their approval. You are obligated only to your own potential, to your own growth, to your own future. And when you commit to that, when you build consistently, when you embrace discipline, when you turn pain into fuel and raise your standards, something extraordinary happens. You begin to rise, slowly at first, almost unnoticed, but then the changes compound. Your body transforms, your mind sharpens, your confidence grows, your results multiply. And one day, without even realizing it, you've crossed a threshold. you've become someone else entirely. Someone stronger, someone wiser, someone powerful. When people from your past see you, they won't recognize you. They'll be stunned by the strength in your presence, the clarity in your eyes, the authority in your voice. They'll remember who you were, the excuses, the weakness, the doubt, and they'll have no choice but to reconcile that memory with the undeniable reality standing before them. That shock is not arrogance, it is proof. Proof that change is possible, that transformation is real, that you refuse to stay ordinary. And perhaps the greatest part of all is this: your transformation will not only shock others, it will inspire those who are ready to rise themselves. By becoming unrecognizable, you give others permission to believe that they, too, can break free from who they've been, that they, too, can outgrow the identity the world has trapped them in, that they, too, can become something extraordinary. So don't just improve a little. Don't just aim for small progress. Commit to transformation so profound that your old self would hardly know your new one. Because when you do, the world won't just notice, you'll shake it to its core. And in that moment, you won't need to prove yourself with words. Your very existence will be the shock. At the end of the day, everything we've spoken about comes down to one thing: choice. The choice to stop blaming, to stop waiting, to stop clinging to the old version of yourself that keeps you stuck. The choice to focus inward, to discipline your mind, to turn pain into fuel, to work quietly while others shout, to raise your standards until they demand greatness, and to transform yourself so completely that the world has no option but to take notice. That choice is yours. No one can make it for you. The truth is, most people will never make that choice. They will live their lives as spectators, drifting through distractions, excusing their failures, and clinging to comfort. But you have the chance to be different. You have the chance to step onto the path that is difficult, demanding, even lonely at times, but also the only path that leads to real transformation. And when you choose that path, you won't need to convince anyone of who you've become. You won't need to explain yourself, justify yourself, or beg for recognition. Your results will speak, your presence will speak, your transformation will speak, and it will speak louder than any words ever could. So decide today to focus on yourself with relentless commitment. Decide to embrace the responsibility, the discipline, the growth, the silence, and the transformation that will set you apart. Because if you do, one day soon, the people who doubted you, ignored you, or underestimated you will be forced to stop and stare. They will see what you've become, and they will be shocked.